Well, hey guys, I want to welcome you all here tonight. I'm going to go over some of the things that people typically have questions about when they first come into our office. Some of you maybe have been to a chiropractic office, and some of you have never stepped foot to a chiropractic office. So my intention is always to lay out the proper framework for you to have a clear expectation of how we're going to help you achieve your goals and really give you a better understanding of some of the things that really pertain to your care in our office. I'm going to go over what the assessments we took with you on your first visit, what those mean and what we take from those to come up with recommendations. I'm also going to go over x-rays. I'm going to show what normal x-rays are and what abnormal x-rays are. I don't know, are any of you x-ray experts out there? No. Okay, great. So at least you're going to learn something. So I will tell you this, as we go through this information, the goal is really to put you on the same page, because we find that when people understand a bit more about how chiropractic works and how it helps you, for whatever reason, people heal faster. And that's what we want for you, to be able to heal faster. So I like to teach in pictures and metaphors, so bear with me. One of the first things I always like to point out is this picture right here. So this picture is representing an iceberg, right? So when you come in and you tell us about all the different problems that you may be dealing with, what you're in essence doing is you're telling us about the surface level discomfort that you're experiencing. Our job is not to just address the surface level discomfort that you're dealing with. Because if all we did was get rid of that neck pain you're dealing with or that lower back pain that you're dealing with, but never actually get to the root cause, that underlying cause, what do you think is going to continue to happen? Yeah, you guessed it. It's just going to keep on coming back. And that's actually one of the most common objections people give to chiropractic. They say, once you go there, you guys got to go back because the problem just keeps on coming back. And that's not the truth of it. In all reality, if you're going to see a chiropractor because your pain is always showing up day after day, year after year, well then that chiropractor probably isn't getting to the root cause of it. So our goal is to not just get rid of that surface level discomfort. We want to figure out what's truly going on underneath so that we can get to that, correct it at its source, so then you can move forward and stay healthy. Does that make sense? Now, how we do that is we take the different assessments that we take from you on your first visit, that nerve assessment, that muscle assessment, your comprehensive health history, as well as those x-rays to come up with a really good understanding of how big your iceberg is. What do you guys think? You got tiny little icebergs, or are they pretty massive? I already know. I have looked at all your cases. I looked at all your x-rays. So I know we got some Titanic sinkers out here tonight, all right? So just bear with me. As we go through a game plan to actually address what's going on, we'll make sure that we help you stay afloat, okay? Now, we find that most people base their pain or their health off of pain, right? If they're in pain, then there's a problem. If there's no pain, there's no problem, right? No, that's absolutely not the case. We find that most problems arise way before pain ever starts, okay? So what I like to say is pain is just an alarm going off inside of our body. So let's say there's a fire that starts in this building. Let's say it starts over there. It may start as a small fire, and you think, someone should put that out, huh? Now, you could go over there and put it out when it's small. That'd be the smart thing to do, right? Well, what we find is that most people have an incident that causes a problem with their back or their knee or something years ago. And they could easily just put that fire out. But do people usually act immediately when they have a problem? Heck no. They usually like to let it linger. They say, it will go away. Does it ever really go away? No, it never goes away. What happens is it actually will sometimes will heal, but most likely if it's going to heal in the wrong position, which then leads to problems way down the road. Think about that person that you know in your life that says, well, I used to play softball, and now when I hurt my knee back when I was in 8th grade, but I got about at home, you know? Then they complain about that knee for like the rest of their life until they're like, well, it's bone on bone, I got to have surgery. So if they would actually address some of those problems right then and there, that fire would have been put out. But what in essence happens is that if you don't address it, the fire only grows, right? So as the fire grows and grows and grows, eventually it's going to make the alarm go off. Now there's two ways to shut off an alarm. You can either put the fire out, which makes the most sense, at least to me, or you can just cover up the alarm, right? You can snip the wires to it, turn it off temporarily. So that's in essence what a drug does. A drug is designed to shut the alarm system of your body off so that you don't feel the symptoms that you're dealing with. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather not have my house go up in flames, or metaphorically, my body to go up in flames. So we don't want people to have to just shut the alarm off to take that medication. Our mission is to help people live a happy, healthy, drug-free life. And that's what we do here. Okay? So we get to the root cause to make sure that that problem doesn't continue to keep on coming back. We put that fire out so then you can move forward from there. But let me ask you this. When the fire is finally put out and the pain is gone, right? Or let's say the building is now gone. What's left after you've had all that fire? Ashes and a bunch of damage, okay? So one of the biggest mistakes people make is that when they go to take care of whatever problem they're dealing with, is as soon as the pain's gone, they think, problem's gone, right? So if you come into me and I look at your spine and I see that the issue that you're having has been there for about 5 to 10 years. We start working with you and you start to get rid of that pain within the first few weeks, and then in the first few months, the pain completely resolves. Does that mean that we just fixed 5 to 10 years of damage in 3 months? No way. Listen, we're good, but we're not magical, all right? We can't undo 5 to 10 years of damage within a matter of a few months. But I'll tell you what we can do is we can put the fire out. So in our office, we have 3 phases of care. The first phase is called the stop phase. Like you would guess, it's to stop the problem, put the fire out. Most chiropractic offices, that's all they do. They put the fire out. You know what? And that's way better than what a lot of medical offices do, because they don't even aim at the fire. They just try to drug you. I'll be kinder to them. They do serve a great purpose, and they're awesome, but they are the end of the road. We want to help people before you ever get to that route where you have to be on drugs or have surgeries, okay? So most chiropractic offices say, hey, we're going to get you fixed up, get you out of pain. As soon as you're out of pain, they say, see you later. Let me know if it ever comes back. Some of you have probably experienced that. Does it come back? Yes. So we thought, you know what? Why don't we do this? Let's take someone from that stop phase where a person is typically seen a bit more frequent, but it's over a shorter span of time. Once we got that problem stopped, how about we then say, let's stabilize that problem. Or if we go back to the burning house analogies, let's clean that up. Let's stabilize. Let's rebuild. Okay? So our phases of care start with stop, shorter time frame, more intense. Then we move to stabilize. Longer time frame, lower frequency. Because I think it's probably a good idea to take, if the ball is already rolling in the right direction, let's just keep tapping it along. We find that patients who stick to that recommendation get the absolute best results. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't found a patient that doesn't want the best results. Okay? So we move a person from stop phase to stabilization phase. And then eventually, we move them to what's called wellness care or wellness phase. That phase is designed to make sure that we keep your spine healthy for the rest of your life. I said it. The rest of your life. You got to see a chiropractor. You don't, unless you want to keep your spine healthy. If you want to keep your spine healthy, then you will want to see a chiropractor for the rest of your life. But that's totally up to you. I can't convince you of that. You got to want to do that. Okay? Now, a lot of people are told if you take enough medications, you become healthy. We already went over that. Medications don't fix problems. Actually, when you take a medication, you end up with another problem. You got the same problem you started with, and then you get the problems that are associated with the drug that you're taking. Right? You're taking drugs for your drugs for your drugs. You don't even know which one's doing what. You may notice that yourself, but you absolutely know people in your life that are like that. So I'll tell you, I actually got into chiropractic because I hurt my spine. Right? See, I don't think dentists do that. I don't think dentists get into dentistry because they bust up their teeth. I think they just see a nice smiling set of pearly whites and they say, I want to do that. Chiropractors, we always hurt ourselves. We hurt ourselves, and that's what leads us to end up, or we see someone else get hurt, or we see something that we find could be healed through something holistic, and that's what led me to it. So I was in the military before I ever became a chiropractor. Hurt my back when I was in the military. And of course, when I heard it, I was younger. I was like 21, 22. And at 21, 22, if you hurt yourself, you always listen right away and you stop doing what you're doing and you let everything heal, right? Everyone always laughs because they know the truth. That is not the case. You usually just keep on making the same mistakes over and over and over again. You're like, oh, this is dumb. Let's put my hand on a hot stove. Well, that's what I kept doing with my lower spine. I hurt it real bad as I was getting out of a piece of heavy equipment over in Iraq, and then I tweaked it, and then I'd let it kind of heal for a day or two, and then I go right back to doing what I was doing, and then I'll get worse and worse and worse. And to the point that basically I had so much pain in my lower back and running down my leg that I couldn't hardly do the things I needed to do. It really stunk. So I had asked them, hey, listen, we got to do something about this. What can we do? So with all the wisdom in the Marine Corps, they said, here, take these pills. The pills didn't work. So they had to say, so then they took me to a different part of the base where they give you stronger pills. And then I had to have one of my superiors signing for these pills. So that tells you a little bit something about them. So they were giving us things like Percocet and Vicodin. So they're strong opioids, which if you're familiar, over the last 10, 15 years in the military, there was an opioid crisis. It's because that's the stuff that they're given to their military members. So I was taking that, and guess what? Guess what happened to my pain when I took all that? Magic, right? I always think it's funny. People say, chiropractic is like magic. Like, really? Have you ever taken a drug? That's somehow magical, right? It just gone. It was gone. But then I was on it for like 6, 7, 8 months. And I'm like, I got to take this drug every single time to make sure that my back doesn't hurt. I didn't find that magical at all. So I said, hey, is there anything else we can do? They said, well, Matt, this has been like this for a while now. I think we need to move to the next step. So what they ended up doing was doing an MRI of my spine. Have any of you ever had an MRI done of your spine? No? Well, it's kind of freaky. You lay inside of a tube. It spins around you. If you're claustrophobic, you really won't like it. Right? But all they do is they take a look at all the different areas of your body, whichever they're running an MRI on. They found that I had a bulged disc in my lower back, right down here around L4 and L5. That was putting pressure on the nerve that runs down the back of my leg, causing a lot of localized pain and nerve pain. So they suggested that I had a spine surgery. Like I said, I was about 21 to 22 years old. What do you think? Spine surgery sound good at 21, 22? Yeah, I didn't think so either. I didn't like it. So I said, can we do something else? They said, sure. Once you get back to your home base in California, then we'll look at giving you some other options. So what am I supposed to do in the meantime? They said, well, just keep on fulfilling your prescription. So obviously I didn't really like that. So I ended up going to the Naval Hospital back in Camp Pendleton when I was stationed back at my home base. And they said, well, you can go see a physical therapist or you can see a chiropractor. I said, well, I don't really care who I see. I just want the problem gone. So they sent me to the chiropractor. And that was kind of cool because that chiropractor was brand new on that base. Chiropractic's been around for well over 100 years, but people are slow learners about how awesome it is. So it takes a long time to get into it. So I went to this chiropractor. I said, hey, doc, they sent me to you because I have some lower back pain. He's like, oh, yeah, I know. I've already looked at all that. I can see that you have some damage in your lower spine. And he said, do you know what is actually going on in your spine? I said, nope. No one's really explained it to me. And every time I say that, I always catch some people in the audience they're like, yeah. Like, no one explains anything to anybody. It's like you go in, it's like, hey, I have this problem, that problem, this problem. It's like, okay, what does that mean though? Like, what does it mean for me? He said, Matt, what you have going on is this, is the bones in your spine, you feel back there, you feel these little bumps, they stack, and on top, or in between each one of them is a space called a disc. That disc is like a rubbery type material that keeps the joints from really being bone on bone. But more importantly, it allows for the nerves to exit freely. So the bones are supposed to be lined up at just within probably less than millimeters. They have to be perfect. Otherwise, they'll cause malfunction of the movement. So when the movement is malfunctioning, when you're not moving right, what do you think that does to those joints? I know it's inside your head. Yes, it wears improperly. When it wears improperly, it causes friction, which can then cause localized pain. So a lot of pain within the spine is caused by the joints not moving properly. Now, if there's pain and irritation at the joint and the nerve comes out right next to it, what do you think that does to the nerve? Yeah, exactly. No bueno. All right. Means you're going to have irritation on that nerve, And if it progresses even worse, it can start to put pressure on the nerve. Me, I actually had the disc space that was protruding out that was putting pressure on the nerve. So he said, well, Matt, what we're going to do is I'm going to use all the information we have currently, and I'm going to help reposition that vertebrae to take pressure off that joint so it moves properly, and then also takes pressure off that nerve so it reduces that pain. I said, wow, well, that makes sense. I said, how do we do it? He's like, well, I'm going to have you laid on the table. And I'm thinking, all right, they already had given me high-dose opioids. They threatened me with surgery. And now this guy just told me to lay on the table and I'm supposed to trust him. Needless to say, I didn't know what to expect, but I just knew I didn't want the first two. So I said, Doc, what are you going to do? He said, well, first I'm going to assess your spine. I'm going to run my hands on your spine. And when I find out where that vertebrae is, I'm going to go ahead and press into the area where it needs to go to take pressure off that joint. I said, all right, well, how are you going to do that? He's like, just take a deep breath. So I took a deep breath, I breathed out, and he was right down on the spot. And chiropractors they're unbelievable. They're like, your spine is braille. They could tell you the story of your life by just running their hands on your spine. I can say this because I've been doing this a while. I can tell if someone's had a bad day, a good day, or a day, right? And pressed right in that area, and all of a sudden I felt that vertebrae move, and it made a little pop sound, and almost immediately I had symptom relief. Like my lower back felt almost immediately better. I could feel the nerve pain starting to even resolve just after that one adjustment. Right? And I remember thinking to myself, they're going to cut open my spine. Like, they were going to cut open my spine. If I would have never went to see a chiropractor, see this crazy guy who just pushed on my back, they were going to cut it open. So I thought I was crazy, and I thought it was really cool that helped. So I got off the table. I said, thanks, Doc, I'm fixed. And he laughed at me, kind of like some of you are laughing at me now. Because he said to me, he's like, Matt, how long did you say that you've had that problem in your spine? I said, it's been about like 8 months now. He said, okay. What do you think all those ligaments, tendons, and joints have been doing for the last 8 months? I said, well, I don't know. Doing what they're supposed to do. It's like, they've now adapted to what that malposition in your spine has been. So what do you think those ligaments, tendons, and joints, what are they going to want to do after this adjustment? And it dawned on me. I was like, oh man, this is why I got to come back. It's like, because those ligaments, tendons, and joints are going to want to go right back to the same position they were in before. So we need to make sure that we continue to retrain those muscles, tendons, and ligaments through regular chiropractic care to reduce that from happening. So he said, in the beginning of your care, that's why it's more frequent. You need to be seen more frequent because we need to make sure that make sure your body is holding that new position. And then as your body is holding that position, we want to see you a little bit less. And then we want to see you a little bit less. We want to see you as little as possible, but yet enough to keep your spine healthy. Now that made sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but when someone says, I got to go to a chiropractor like 3 times a week, 2 times a week, it never made sense to me until he explained it in that format. I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So I went through that process. It was about a 2 to 3 month process, and I was out of pain and I was feeling great. But the cool thing was this, is that I wasn't just out of pain. I could run better, right? Now, why the heck do you think I could run better after he started moving the joints in my spine? Any ideas? Yeah, I know it's inside your head, I can tell. Yeah, well, because when the joints move better, guess what? I move better. My hip bone's connected to my spine bone, right? Yeah, it's all connected. So I could move better. But there's other crazy stuff that happened. My digestion got better. Now that's really crazy, right? Because how the heck does pushing in your back cause digestion to improve? And that's when he showed me this chart, which I thought was sweet. He said, Matt, everything in your body is controlled by what's inside your head, right? Some people have what's inside your head in your butt. You just got to talk to them. You'll figure out where it is. That's a joke. People don't literally have their brain in their butt, even though sometimes it seems like it. Okay? So he said every single nerve in your body is controlled by the brain, and it's done through the nervous system that resides within inside the spine. So every single cell, tissue, and organ is communicated to by this. This is the pathway of life. All messages come from here, come down through here, and then out through there, right? So if I think about this, this is like the pool of water that feeds life to my entire body. The spinal cord is the river, and then the nerves are the streams and pathways, right? So if we're going to be growing a garden, how well does it do without water? It doesn't. Go ahead and snip a nerve that goes out to your hand. What do you think your hand does? It doesn't. Okay? So he said, Matt, these nerves don't just control pain areas. Okay? So if you have neck pain, yes, when you get adjusted, that can reduce neck pain. But those nerves that also go out into your neck that cause sensation, they go into the motor portions of the spine. That's why we do a muscle assessment test, because it tests the motor portion of your spine. So it could be affecting motor control, decreasing or increasing motor control. It also goes to what's called autonomic control, which is a fancy word for the nerve that controls stuff you don't think about. Right? So the same nerve that's in the top of your neck controls your sinuses, controls the muscles of your neck. Heck, it even controls parts of your jaw and even parts of your tongue. Isn't that crazy? So if you go down the spine, through the top portion of your spine right here, right in your base of your neck, a lot of people have problems here. And then they also talk about having problems in their hands. You ever wonder, maybe those are connected? It's because they are. The nerves in the base of your neck, they go into your arms and hands. They go into your throat. Nerves across your upper back go into your lungs, stomach, liver. Nerves in the lower portion of your spine go into your lower digestive tract, your legs, feet, knees, bowel, bladder, reproduction. So if someone comes in and they say, Doc, I don't know what you did, but my sinuses are clear now. And they don't quite understand it yet because they think sinuses are somehow not connected to your brain, right? It's like, oh man, like when I eat fruit, I don't get acid reflux anymore. That's crazy. Because you think that's from chiropractic? And I get to look at it and be like, listen, if there's something interrupting the signal from here to there, absolutely. Chiropractic's all about restoring signal from the brain to the rest of the body. If we do that effectively, you will be as healthy as you possibly can be. People are always like, oh, so are you saying chiropractic fixes everything? I said, listen here. If you have a problem with your digestion that's being caused by a lack of B12 vitamin in your body, I could adjust you all day long, and it's not going to fix that problem. But if you're not getting proper communication from your brain to your stomach, I don't care how much B12 you pump to your body, you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. Nerve communication is everything. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. Step one in health is keeping your spine healthy. I'm telling you something that nobody knows. Your spine is the master control of everything in your body, yet nobody knows they need to be taking care of their spine. Is that not ridiculous? That is absolutely ridiculous. We know that the system that runs everything is inside your backbone, but yet none of you even know that you should be taking care of it on a regular basis. I sometimes will make a little joke when someone will say, like, well, I'll say, hey, have you thought about telling your sister about chiropractic? And say, well, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I said, yeah, it's just their backbone. Right? It only houses every single nerve in their body and controls every single thing in their body. Why would we bother, right? It's like, you hate your sister? Come on! So we know that when we assess your spine, we're not just looking for areas where you have pain. We do our assessments to do a full understanding of what's going on in your body. I like to call it my mind detector, okay? Because if you go into a dentist and you say, Doc, my teeth are great, they're awesome, and then they start looking around and they find that there's plaque here and there's a cavity back there, are you like, nope, they're good? No. Their job is to tell you when there's something wrong with your teeth. And if you're smart, you act on it so that you remove those problems before they progress to worse. We already talked about small fires. My job, our job here, is to find those problems early so that we don't have to be talking to you 5 years from now about that excruciating lower back pain that you should have addressed right now, that you didn't even know was there. But we picked it up on our assessments, and we picked it up on your x-rays. You're welcome. So we know this, that the spine is supposed to be aligned like this. These bones are supposed to stack nice on top of one another. These spaces are all supposed to be the same size, and the nerves are supposed to exit freely. But we have these subluxations. That's when those bones slip and move out of proper place. They put pressure on a nerve, decreasing nerve communication and decreasing health. Okay? So when I jumped down and I landed funny and I tweaked my back, that's what happened. I had a subluxation. Thing was, it was a big trauma. So it caused that subluxation to immediately cause excruciating pain. But you have micro traumas every single day that cause subluxations, but you don't feel it yet. Okay? You can have problems on your spine and not realize it, just like you can have cavities in your teeth and not realize it. It always makes sense to assess these things early, and that's why we do that. Now, there's lots of things that cause subluxation. If I asked you, you could probably all come up with 10 of them. I'm being gracious, right? But you have mental stress. You think mental stress causes subluxation? You ever notice that your shoulders go to your ears when you're stressed? Right? Some of you can tell. How about physical stress? Lifting, bending, slips, falls, accidents. Heck yeah, that's what most people think are causing subluxations. How about environmental stress? You think barometric pressure changes, weather changes cause your body to ache? Oh yeah, I see you back there. Yeah, it hurts, doesn't it? Yeah. What about chemical stress? You think the stuff you put in your body can cause subluxation? I mean, nope. Who would have thought maybe inflammation might not just be in your gut? It could also be in all your joints and being caused by the foods that you eat. These are all things. And we're not going to talk about all that, but during your care, we'll talk about some of the things that could be causing those subluxations so that we get to the root cause. So we don't just help you here. We want to help you here, which then allows for you to do the stuff at home to make sure that you are successful all the way through, right? Now, this is an example of what we're going to be looking at on your x-ray, okay? This is a picture of a normal spine, and this is a picture of someone who has a curve in their spine, also known as a scoliosis. So on your x-rays, right, when we assess that, we want to see what the structure has a nice straight appearance from the front, and then it's balanced. You shouldn't have your hips all crazy like this, right? Now, from this side, you should have smooth curves all the way throughout, and we'll touch on that in a second. Now, if this person right here is 50 years old, and I have another person that has a spine like that who's 17, who has a better chance of getting that spine corrected? 17-year-old. Yeah, good. What about a 17-year-old and a 7-year-old? How about a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old? Okay, are we getting it? So when is the best time to address the spine? Is it when you're 17 or when you're 3? How about when you're a baby? Again, I just go back to saying it's just their spine. It just houses everything in their body. Why would we want to have a kid checked for misalignment? I'll tell you why. It's because all growth and development is based upon nervous system function. If you want your kids to be as healthy as they could be, they should be under chiropractic care. Right? And now you know this information. If you want your kids to be as healthy as they could be, they need to be under chiropractic care. Right? My kids are under chiropractic care ever since they were born. Caught them right out of the birth canal. First things I checked, atlas, top of the spine, fingers and toes, right? 1, 2. Not 1, 2 fingers and toes, but, atlas, misalignment, top of the neck, because that's the most common birth trauma. And then checking that they got all the fingers and toes. But it's so important, okay? Now, when we're looking at your spine, most people think of pain, pain, pain. I need you guys to not focus so much on pain, even though that's all you're focused on right now. We are going to help you get out of that pain, okay? Have confidence in that. But we need to make sure that we're addressing pain first and then long-term correction beyond that. Now, the last thing I want to go over is what normal x-rays look like and what abnormal x-rays look like. And then we're going to go over yours. So this is what a normal side of the spine should look like. This is the cervical curve, the neck. There's a nice smooth curve that's developed right here. That curve should be between 30 and 40 degrees. All right? Remember that because we're going to go over yours in just a few minutes. 30 to 40 degrees. Now, there's going to be a line drawn off the base of your neck that goes up and we measure forward. That measurement should be about 10 millimeters. No more than that, because what ends up happening is then you're like this. Oh, is that a good look? It's like the turtle look? No? Nobody wants that. So we're going to look at that. As I mentioned before, these bones are nice and square. These spaces are wide. All right? Now, if we take someone who has a healthy spine, they have a subluxation, and then all of a sudden they don't know about it, and it's there for 5 to 10 years. I want to show you what stage 1 looks like, which is 5 to 10 years of degeneration. What do you notice about that curve that was there before? It's not there anymore. So they now have, this person actually has a bit of a reverse curve. So I like to say this, is that if this was a person's teeth, this is like they have plaquing on their teeth. Can you remove plaquing or tartar? You can. So this is a completely correctable spine. Hooray! They got here early. These disc spaces are still in great shape. Everything can be correctable. What happens after plaque is not corrected or removed? What does it lead to? Cavities. Very good. Even my son knows that. He says, I brush my teeth, Daddy, so I don't get cavities. He knows that. So the same thing goes with your spine. You don't correct this will turn into a cavity. A spinal cavity is called degenerative disc disease. All right, and I'll show you what that looks like. But let's just talk about this for a minute. 5 to 10 years to get that way. How long should it take to get that curve restored? Most people will be like, oh, well, it took 5 to 10 years to get that way. It may take 5 to 10 years to get back, right? This is what amazes me about the human body, is that it may take 5 to 10 years to get a certain way, but it doesn't take that long to get back to the way it was. As long as we have a person who's willing to stick to the recommendations, do what they need to do, this curve will start to change within a matter of a few months. Now, I will tell you, it's not going to be fixed in a few months. This will take at least a year plus of really regimented care and home care to make sure that that spine starts to go back in the right direction. But hey, a year is far better than 5 to 10 years, right? It's pretty cool. Let's go back to that cavity. So if someone has a subluxation here, that's that misalignment in the spine, decreasing nerve communication and motion. You leave it there, it starts to wear away, it causes disc. This is degenerative disc disease. Hardly any disc space there. You see these are healthy, normal disc spaces, then you get to there and you're like, ugh. That's what a cavity of the spine looks like. What do they do with cavities in your mouth? They drill them out, and then they pack them full of stuff that you probably shouldn't have in there anyways. Okay? They can't do that with the spine. Limitations matter. Once you've damaged it enough, that's all you get. But guess what you can do? You can stop it. Most of the time, most people we see actually look like this. So we stop, we stabilize that problem so it doesn't progressively get worse. You know one of the coolest things I get to do? We redo evaluations all the time with our patients because we think it's really important to make sure that we track their progress. I have people who have been under care for over 7 years. When we retake their x-rays and I look at areas that had degenerative disc disease before and see if they've progressed, almost always I see that they're stable. Why the heck is it stable? Because they're doing something to make sure it doesn't progressively get worse. That's the cool part. Now it took 5 to 10 years to get to phase 1. Phase 2 is going to take between 10 to 15. So again, it's not going to take 10 to 15 years to get someone feeling better, but it will take much longer than just a couple weeks. We're looking at least 1.5 years to 2 years just to try to stabilize that person's spine. Okay? They say, you know what? I'm just going to let it ride and see how it goes. What do you think it looks like if they don't do anything about it at this point? Better or worse? Yeah. It's like, you know, one of the dumbest things I hear is, I think I'll just wait till I have pain and then I'll call you. Like, what? How did you calculate that? That makes no sense. Because this is what happens when you have late-stage damage to your spine. Multiple years, 15 to 20 plus years of damage in that person's spine. And this person takes forever to heal, and then it takes a lot of effort to keep them stable. See, a lot of people like this in our practice too. But you can imagine, do you want to make the right decisions earlier in life, or wait till you got to pick up all the pieces later? Yeah, I mean, come on. We all know the right answer. It's not always the easy answer, but it's the right answer. Now, people usually ask me, like, okay, I get it. It's going to take time. It's going to take repetition. That's awesome. It seems like they had a good plan. But how much care do people need? And I always go back to little kids. Now, little kids jumping around, playing on a jungle gym, how often do you think they misalign their spine? Per day. I can tell you my kids, it's per second, maybe that max per minute. Right? But they're much more pliable. So I always tell people that at minimum, a child should be checked for subluxation every 14 days. So every 2 weeks, they should be checked. But I recommend most kids get it checked weekly. That's how my kids get checked. Because I find that in 7 days, they can do a lot of stuff to their spine that could cost them problems, and I don't want them to have problems. I don't know any parent that does. So in a kid, over a year's time frame, they're going to be seen at least between 20 to 30 times. Obviously, if they're being seen weekly, you're going to be more like 50 sometimes. All right? Now let's go back to phase 1. How many adjustments should someone in phase 1 need? Well, I'll tell you, they definitely need at least 50. They at least need to be here weekly, but it's more than that. So they're usually going to be between that 60 to 70 adjustments in a year's time frame. Go to phase 2. Yeah, you're going to creep up above that. Get to this phase. Might as well just get a bed in the back. Okay? I'm just joking. You don't need to sleep here. But you do need to come. You're going to need to be here more frequent. Just makes sense, right? More damage equals more time to undo the damage. That's what it equates to. You know, when I go through this, the next logical thing in your head is like, well, shoot, if I got to be here 60, 70, 80 adjustments and over a longer span of time, how the heck does anyone afford that? Well, I can tell you, obviously you see all the people who come in here, so you know we make care affordable. But I always like to tell people that, oh, we just get in with every insurance company because they always cover everything you need and they never give you any trouble. Okay, good. We got some smiles and laughter. Yes, that is the worst joke of my presentation. Insurance doesn't work that way, right? And I think you all know that already, but insurance wants to pay for as little as possible. They have stipulations around everything. And what we find is that most people, when I say most, I mean close to 90% of people in our practice don't even use or get to use their insurance. And it's not because we're not a network. We're a network with almost all major insurance companies. It's because either the deductibles are crazy high, so it doesn't even benefit to bill towards them, or once they do get to use it, they only get to use it for a small portion of time. Now, if you're one of those lucky people that have already met all your deductibles, which on average is about $5,000 to $10,000 already up front before you get to use it, well, then what insurance companies do is they say, well, now you are subject to what's called medically necessary. So they tell you, sir, hey, you have 20 adjustments on your plan. Great, right? And you say, yeah, great. I got lower back pain. This could really help me. So then you come in, we do an assessment, we take all that information, we submit it to the insurance company, and then they look at it and they say, all right, this person has this much problem, so they need this much care. They don't say this person has 20 adjustments, so they can use all 20. No, they say this person has this much problem, so they only need this much care. It's like if you smash your car in the ditch. Do they just give you a brand new car, or do they just fix what they think needs to be fixed? Most people don't know that. Health insurance, car insurance, they actually are about identical. Okay? So in your case, you may have 20 adjustments, but they may only allow you to use 12. That's on a good day. I tell you that because I like people to know we're on your side. And trust me, if you think the insurance companies are hard for you to work with, try to be us. They are difficult. But we always try to make care as cost effective as possible. Now, I got to show you something because sometimes people don't believe me. This section is right out of the Medicare Carriers Manual. And people are like, why do I need to know this? It's because Medicare Carriers Manual is the rule book for all insurance companies. So they say what can and cannot be utilized for insurance care. So that's, in this section, it lays out what necessity for treatment. What is necessary for them to cover or not cover. So they say services that seek to prevent disease, promote health, and prolong and enhance the quality of your life, or maintain or prevent deterioration of a chronic condition. So we're talking about health, which is preventative, and then we're talking about stabilization, which is long-term. They say those services are deemed what? Not medically necessary. What does that mean again, in layman's terms? They don't have to cover it. I say that because I like people to understand. If we can help you use it, we will. But what we find is that they put so many strings and red tape and everything around it that it makes it so difficult for you. But obviously you see the people that come in here, people can afford the care we offer. And you need to correct this problem. Right? So that's what we're here to do. Last slide, I promise. We care for a lot of age ranges. All right? From little bitty babies all the way up to big babies. Okay? And we love caring for the entire family. We do that because our mission is to make a healthier community. I'll tell you what, patients who come in here take less medications, they have less surgeries, and they're healthier and happier than patients who don't. I know that for a fact. Now, if I ask you guys, do any of you want any of your friends, family, coworkers to be on more drugs and have more surgeries? One of you is like, well, I don't really like that cousin of mine. Maybe. No, get that thought out of your head. Tell them about chiropractic. One of the greatest things I get to do by talking to you is I get to share this information with you while you're seated here and you can't leave. So I've just given you all this information that people don't know. You have a choice. You can take that information, take it home, and keep it to yourself and not tell anyone. Or you could tell somebody and change their life. Because that's what we do here. We change people's lives. We take them off the path toward drugs and surgery and put them on the path towards health. And that's what our mission is. We appreciate you guys being here. And again, if you do have people in mind, please tell the front staff, because they will help you get those people in here. We have special discounts and things that we do strategically to help lower that barrier, to help those people make the first step towards their health. Guys, thank you so much for your time, your attention, and for not falling asleep. Have a great night.